East Idaho Newsmakers is brought to you by the Bank of Commerce, your bank of a lifetime.
This is East Idaho Newsmakers with Nate Eaton.
Welcome to East Idaho Newsmakers. Thanks for being with us today. I'm Nate Eaton. Today we are talking about ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. And in the studio with us is Mindy Rees. You might recognize her from a Secret Santa surprise that we did a few weeks ago. We went to her home on behalf of a Secret Santa and gave her and her husband Wyatt a gift. And since then, the video I think has been seen, 120,000 times or something? Somewhere up there. And national media have picked it up. Yeah. First of all, how are you guys doing since this onslaught of publicity?
We're okay. We still have to keep going every day like we do. So honestly, to me, they're just numbers. I mean, I still get up and take care of my kids and take care of Wyatt, and it's not like my life has changed.
There's been quite an outpouring from the community.
There has, yes. I've had a lot of people who've contacted me, so many nice comments of just, you're such an inspiration, and thank you for being who you are, and thanks for sharing your story on there, on the blog. And so because there were so many people after the Secret Santa thing, they just were trying to be like friend requesting me, and I'd go up to Wyatt and I'm like, okay, do you know this person? And we were trying to figure out who we knew from high school and if it was somebody we knew, and we realized there was so many people that we didn't know, and not a lot of people obviously would know this, but I've never posted anything on Facebook about Wyatt and I ever in all the years that he's been sick. I finally just made my first post right before we went to the Mayo Clinic. And so many of my friends on Facebook were like, we had no idea. Like, it's just, we've just been living normally as we can. So I know a lot of people were wanting like all these updates and to be friends. And so I created a different Facebook page because I thought, okay, if so many people want to know, then I'll let that. So I have the separate Facebook page now just to kind of track. If people want to know, then that's great, and I'd be happy to do it.
And we'll link to that in the story below. And the reason I wanted to have you come back in is because ALS, I think a lot of people, including myself, were surprised that here's such a young man when 20,000 Americans around there, they think, have ALS, and generally it's ages 40 to 70, and Wyatt's 33.
Yes, and I think that in the very beginning was why we went so long not knowing what it was, because he started with his tongue twitching, and it was kind of just an annoying
And he was
thing.
29, right?
Well, 2014.
2014, so 3 years ago. His tongue
so
starts
like
to
30.
twitch.
Yeah, so it was right before he turned 30. So he gets hired to be in the CES. He has his first summer of teaching, and he was fine, but then like right as the school year started, he started noticing his tongue was twitching, and we were just not a big deal, like maybe you're dehydrated or something. It was a big deal, and it would kind of come and go. It wasn't a constant. But then the school year started, and he started teaching, and he noticed that it was getting a little bit more and a little bit more, and then his hands, his fingers started curling in, and he couldn't shake the students' hands. And so then he kind of started getting a little bit more concerned. So we would just go to like a hand specialist or an orthopedic or an ENT. We were kind of going those routes to find out what was going on. And everything that they did, they come back and they said, no, like it's fine. There's this test is showing that there's nothing going on. So it was hard, but we did end up going to a neurologist, and because of those factors, he was so young. That was a huge factor. So they kind of told us, no, this isn't.
So they kind of ruled ALS out because he was so young.
Yeah, they did at the very beginning. And so we just kept going, like doctor to doctor to doctor. And the hard part is looking back now, it's so obvious. Yes, this is what you had. But it's such well, for him at least, it's very slow progressing.
So it started with his tongue, then his hand, and then what?
Well, I remember there was one time right before school was getting ready to start for the fall, and he needed to, get his classroom ready, and he would have us come in there. So me and the girls would go in there and hang things up because he was having a hard time even just like stretching his arm up. I mean, he just would tell me, I can't get it to go. It's not going up. And so, but then there'd be different times where he'd sit in his office and he was preparing for his lesson, and naturally all of a sudden he'd go to grab for something and it worked. And so to him it was just, what is going on? Like sometimes it's working, sometimes it's not. And so everything, that is just how it slowly started going. And so when you're in that moment or in that time frame, and for how slow it's going, it wasn't this alarming, oh my gosh, what is going on? And so that's just how it progressed. It was slow enough. And then by the time about April of 2015, so he hadn't even finished out the school year, his year of teaching, but he couldn't even like physically make it to work. I remember he'd be in the shower trying to get ready and get dressed, and he would yell for me, and like I would, like he just
couldn't walk. He
couldn't. It like from his knee down, it's like he couldn't bend his knee, and so would just go sit him in a chair and put a blanket on him and try to like just get him to relax, because he was, what the heck is going on, kind of a thing. So yeah, so from then on they realized, with his work, they obviously knew, hey, something is going on here. You can't keep coming. We got to find substitutes. And so they were amazing to work with. And so he didn't even finish out that school year. And then we just, kept trying to go to doctors. And
you end up at the Mayo Clinic.
Yes.
Earlier this year.
Yes.
So 3 years later.
Yes.
And you finally get a diagnosis.
Yes.
Did you know in the back of your mind that we think it's ALS, or had you guys kind of ruled it out too because everyone else had?
Well, yeah, so right at the very beginning, obviously they thought, no, it's fine. And then there was even a different doctor here who, he said, this could be ALS, but it also couldn't be, just because of those, like, you're so young and you're breathing okay. Like and he said, for the timeline, for how far you're into it, like some of the symptoms are just not really adding up, and it was just a confusing thing for everybody. And so, I'm glad we got where we are now because of, like I said, with the diagnosis, the Mayo Clinic totally set us up. They contacted the ALS Association for us. When we were there, they said, by the time you get home, somebody should be calling you. It just made the process so much easier. I was getting all the phone calls from the ALS Association and from the people who were reaching out to me, instead of me coming home and being like, okay, now what do I do? Who do I call? How do I register? That kind of stuff.
When did Wyatt start to lose his speech?
When he was teaching, when the school year started, he noticed that it was kind of getting a little bit harder. And for him, like I said, things would fluctuate. And I don't know, it would make him, he could feel it getting harder and harder, and he could tell some of the students weren't really understanding him. Like they would say, can you repeat that? Like, and that was making him nervous and, trying to teach a lesson, and people weren't really understanding him. And for whatever reason, he could, if he sat on a chair and he knew he was okay, and it just gave him that security, like then his voice would be a little bit better. So in the morning time, his voice would be really hard and he couldn't get it out. But then by like the fourth period at the end of the day, he felt like he could talk, and it was so much easier and people were understanding him. And he would even ask students like, hey, could you understand me? And they were like, yeah, what are you talking about? You're fine. So that was another hard part, is it just seemed like sometimes it would be okay, sometimes it wouldn't.
Was that the same with eating? Sometimes he could eat?
Okay, the eating didn't come till a lot later on. He has been able to, so he's been able to eat, but he just couldn't like feed himself because his arms were getting tighter. So he could chew for a while and eat food just normally, but he just couldn't get his arms up to get the food to him. And so that the actual trying to eat was getting a lot harder. So we went in August, and probably about a few months prior, maybe 4 months, I actually started, like, he was having a harder time, like chewing, and we would kind of stick to softer things that he could chew, and then we started noticing that even those things were getting hard, and it was taking so long for him to eat. And then he would get so exhausted, and then he wouldn't want to eat.
But he still has an appetite, right? He still gets hungry.
Yeah.
He still can smell things and want to eat them.
Yeah. So we get back from the Mayo Clinic, and they suggested, which that was a huge blessing, because I knew he was starving all the time. He's like, I just want to eat. And I would like puree food as thin as I could, like trying to get healthy stuff in there, like I would like steam carrots and corn and beans and stuff, and then we'd process it up and put it in mashed potatoes, make it as easy it is for him to get down, and then he would just have to try to like drink, and he was always coughing. And so I would try to get the nutritional side in as much as you can. But so then when we got back with the diagnosis, and he had the surgery, which the doctors here were amazing. We got home on a Saturday, so then we went Sunday, and then we got into our family doctor Monday, and he had his surgery by that Friday and had his feeding tube.
Oh, they put in a feeding tube.
Put the tube in. And so then we met with a dietitian. They immediately brought like the formula over, so it's just like liquid formula that has all your nutrition, but that's just liquid, and so it just goes straight into his stomach. And it took a few days, but like the best thing in the world to hear him say was, I'm full. Like he just, it's like all those little things that you just don't, he was just like, I'm not hungry anymore. And I'm like, oh, yes, it just makes you feel so much better when you're trying to take care of somebody. And there's all those things that, number one, he can't talk as well to tell you, but yeah.
He lost 110 pounds?
Yeah, from the time that this all started, so like the 3-year span. And we didn't even know, we haven't been able, you could look at him and see how much weight he's lost, but because he can't stand up, we had never been able to weigh him on a scale. So when we went to the Mayo Clinic, and they had obviously the capability of weighing him in the wheelchair and that kind of stuff, like we realized he was down to like 170 pounds. So, yeah.
And he played high school football.
Yeah, and wrestled.
Active.
Yeah. In
Rock
fact,
climbing.
He has a picture from high school that he loves to show me of his six-pack.
This is a healthy guy.
Yeah. We, as a family, we were always out. Like, he introduced to me so many things, out there, mountain biking, hiking. Like, we were so active and would go do all those kinds of things. And then, it's really sad when you see him, he can't even pick up his leg, and he was falling all the time. And when he would fall, he couldn't stick his hands out to catch himself. And so he would literally just fall flat. And we were like, what is going on? Trying to figure it out. So, yeah.
So we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, I want to have you talk about how you communicated with him once he lost his speech. I heard that you came up with a color-coded sort of chart.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that after, and also what's being done now, the outlook now with his new iTeletype machine or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
A lot more with Mindy Rees talking about ALS today when we come back.
At the Bank of Commerce, we understand the hard work, determination, and sacrifice it takes to run a successful business. That's why we're here every step of the way to help make your dreams come true. The Bank of Commerce, your bank of a lifetime.
Welcome back to East Idaho Newsmakers. You may recognize our guest from a Secret Santa surprise EastIdahoNews.com did a few weeks ago. We showed up at the Reeses' home on a Friday morning. They weren't expecting us, right?
Not at all.
Not at all. $10,000, a gift from a Secret Santa. And leaving that home, seeing Wyatt Rees, who has ALS, as a young 33-year-old father of 4, including a cute 5-month-old baby boy? 6-month-old baby boy.
Yeah.
Made us think that maybe we should do a show on ALS and talk about this. Before the break, we talked about how this gradually came upon your physically fit husband who taught seminary, LDS seminary. Starts with his legs, or starts with his tongue, moves to his legs, eventually takes his speech and his eating capabilities.
Yeah.
During all of this, how did you communicate with him as his tongue is slowly going away, as he can't talk?
So the chart that you were talking about, the color one, that actually didn't come until we went to the Mayo Clinic. Okay. So for the time that he lost his speech, we just figured it out.
Because he couldn't write.
No, his hands went before his speaking could. So when you're with somebody every day, all day long, you just figure it out. And so we just did it. Like, he just would try to get the words out, and then you kind of get into a routine of what your everyday things are, so you know what he needs, what he doesn't need. And so we kind of developed okay, blink once for yes, or those kind of things. But for the most part, I don't even know how to explain it. And there were people who would come into our house and they would watch us communicate, and they were like, how did you even know what he said? And I'm like, I just do. Like, I can't even explain how we figured it out. But I did get a lot of people who would come in there and say, how in the world do you even know what he just asked you? But we were on the same page enough to know I could figure it out. Or as time went on, the hardest thing I think I've had to do this whole time was leave him to go have my baby. And leaving him with somebody else to take care of him was so hard, because I thought, how are they going to communicate with him? Because I've been doing it for so long. So in that time, that the friends and family that we had that were there to take care of him, they kind of developed they had to just start going through the alphabet. Like, whatever word he was trying to say, they would say, okay, we're going to start with the first letter. And they would just go A, B, C, D, E. And he would just blink for yes, like, okay, it's that letter. And then they would just go through it and go through it and go through it and just finally spell out the word. I was on the phone, like, the whole time I was in the hospital, because people were just like, Mindy, what's he saying? And I'm like, okay, let me help you figure this out. I was trying to get out of the hospital so fast, so I could get home to, like, help him, because I felt so helpless. Not being able to help him. But so that kind of helped open up a window for when I didn't quite understand him, then we kind of started, okay, let's spell it out.
With the system.
And so, but other than that, we just
Has he been able to hold your son?
Yeah, I stick him in his arms all the time. Like, in fact, I don't know what it is, and I've been trying to get it, like, on video, because I love it. He can be screaming and just crying, and I'll be, trying to take care of the baby and trying to take care of Wyatt, and my toddler's doing something. And there was one time I was like, Wyatt, you have to help me. And I just opened up his arm and I stuck the baby in there, and he was screaming, stuck his back arm in there, and he's laying in bed. He's not gonna fall or go anywhere. Well, on Wyatt's tablet, he has music. And it didn't even take hardly any time, but he turned the music on and he totally quit crying. And it just, like, is so peaceful. Anytime he is crying, I'm just like, here you go, take care of him, because I can tell, like, my baby loves to be in his arms. It's so peaceful, and so he loves to hold him. He loves to be able to know he's helping out in any way that he can.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So he has a machine now that visually his eyes can trace words, and it'll then read the sentence.
Yeah, it's just, it's basically like a glorified iPad or something. It has the keyboard. On the very bottom, there's, like, these red sensors that every time you move into a new position, you have to calibrate it. So you can't just, like, stick it in front of you. There's a diagram that shows you the distance that you need to be at, like, where your eyes need to be at. So you got to be in the you have to have it in that right spot. But it calibrates every single time. And so you look at it, and it's just it's like if you're texting. Like, when you go to text somebody, there's the keyboard, there's the, where it tries to guess what you're saying in the screen, and that's all it is. But it's just when he looks at the letter. And so it just spells it out. And it's nice because it has the, it guesses what you're trying to say, so he doesn't have to try to type out every single word. So then he just types it out and then looks at the button, and it reads it out loud.
Tell me about your son's baby blessing.
Yes, that was amazing. So within the tablet, there's a way that you could journal if you want to. You could write. There's not just immediately speaking. So the second that we got it, and the second that I called, and we were on the phone with the ALS Association. The Evergreen chapter is in Washington, and they're for our area, and the people are amazing. So she did a training and showed Wyatt and I how to do everything with it. So she showed us where you go, and so the second that we got it, I said, okay, where can we save something? And so he started working on it, because it takes a lot. And one thing I didn't realize that they warned us about, you can't use any muscles, but the only muscles that you're using are your eyes. So he is tired a lot more often, because every little thing he wants to try saying, like there's times where his eyes are bloodshot. I'm like, you've just got to close them, like just take a break, because everything he does has to be done with his eyes. So he did. He worked on it for a few weeks, and he was able to get it typed out, and we just did it in our home, and we did the same thing. I just laid him in his lap, and he was able to just hit speak, and it did it.
No.
Yeah.
Wow. So he's diagnosed with ALS at the Mayo Clinic in August.
Yes.
What now? What are you guys doing now? Medically, can anything be done?
Medically, well, okay, so I got online. I was curious, and I was, I think now, I'm not one just to sit and say, okay, I'll take it. It's like, what can I be doing? Is there really something out there? I did get online, and there is a doctor in North Carolina, at the Duke University, and he just got done with the phase 2 clinical trial for ALS. Now, one thing at the Mayo Clinic they told us about the clinicaltrial.gov website, and they said, get on here and you look and see if there's anything in your area. Look and see if there's something that you can do for these trials for ALS. And so I did get on and look, and I found that there was a CNN story. There's a clip that I watched that was so exciting. They found he has 22 cases of ALS in the United States that their symptoms have reversed. And he's trying to figure out why and what. He met with a patient who started a supplement. So because it's not a pharmaceutical medicine, because it's a supplement that this person was taking, he did a clinical trial with it. And he was able to, he told patients on there, he said, any of you who have ALS who wants to do this, I've already filled up my 50 spots for this clinical trial, but you can order this supplement. He gave the regimen. He told you what to take, how much to take it. Then there's a website called patientslikeme.com, and he said, get on there and post your results. Like, we want to know if this can help. And on the clinicaltrial.gov website, it says people who take this regimen of supplements can have extreme improvements in speaking and swallowing. And so
have you
we're into it.
You've started
yeah.
it?
Yeah. I haven't wanted to say anything. There's not very many people, because ALS is depressing. Why, people, that's all they want to talk about is how, nope, there's nothing to do for it. There's nothing you can do.
But also make it clear, too, a lot of people, his brain and mind are still there.
Yes, and that is the frustrating thing to him. He sees how much I'm having to do. Like, I can't even tell you what this morning was like just to get here.
4 kids under 7.
Yes. So and I think that's what, like, we're still a normal couple. We still love each other, but we still have our frustrations. And one thing that I've noticed, though, is it's so hard to be mad at your husband when I'm talking to him and I'm like, oh, this is so bad. And then I have to just sit and wait for him to respond back, because I can't just walk out. So I sit and I wait for him to give his comeback. And by the time he's already had his remark back to me, I'm like, I'm so sorry. I can't be mad at you. I can't be mad at the situation. So yeah, and that's what's so frustrating is to him, he's told me, Mindy, I'm so sorry. I can't help you. But then I come back and I'm like, it's okay. I love you. I will do this. I'm sorry. I get, frustrated or whatever. But yes, that is the hardest part, is for him, I know, to sit there and just think, she's taking care of me. She's taking care of everyone. And that's why he loves to hold the baby. Anything he can do that's sitting there, he is so willing to do it. Like my 5-year-old, she does her homework with him. I mean, it is just a given. She doesn't read her books to me. She knows that that's what she does. So he's still a very important part in this family. He has, his role as a father. And my one daughter came home from school the other day, and he could tell something was wrong, and he's just like, Mindy, have her come in here and shut the door. And she, I'm so proud of her. She just is so patient to sit and wait for him to just ask what's going on. And he has, you know, he's their dad. He takes care of the problem. So
he's as frustrating as it is for you, it sounds like it's equally or more so frustrating for him.
Yes.
What is the outlook? I mean, so you're hopefully the supplement takes, and there is that. In the medical community, though, do they basically say, sorry?
Yeah, they do. And they say, you know, we'll try to make things as comfortable as we can for you. And, you know, just with the feeding tube so you're not starving. And if you're, you know, then we have the nurses through our home health agency who come and listen to his lungs and check for, you know, just sitting like sores and that kind of stuff. So everybody that we've been involved with is amazing. I mean, they just, it's, the second you get that diagnosis, I've had doctors, here's my cell phone number. Like, anything you need, you call me. And I think, you know, they all know how horrible it is. But I can't focus on that. I don't like to think, oh, well, when this happens, what am I going to do? Like, I am living today in the moment and being happy that he's here and being happy that he can help my girls and that they can have their dad.
Do they know, will it ever affect the muscle in his brain? Does it eventually get to the brain? It doesn't. It's
your lungs. You're there. As far as I know, what I've read, it just affects, at the Mayo Clinic, they said any voluntary muscles. And so you're moving. And so at first you think, well, you just breathe naturally. And they said, I know you think that, but you can hold your breath. And so it's, and that you know, that part.
So that's the big worry if it gets to your lungs.
Yep.
So he's getting a new wheelchair, which should hopefully make things a lot easier.
Yes, yeah. He can, it can recline back, it has the neck rest, and he drives it with his chin. Because he still has like his neck muscles are getting, like holding it up completely straight after a while, it gets really tired. But if you have the chair that has the neck rest and you can be tilted back just a little bit, then he can control it with his chin and he can drive around himself.
And isn't there two types of ALS, genetic and then spontaneous?
Yes.
And this doesn't run in his family, right?
No, and they told us there at the Mayo Clinic, they said this is more than likely, just because there is no trace that we even know of it, then it's more of the spontaneous.
And it just random, completely random. They don't know what caused it, how he got it, nothing.
But one thing that I am so thankful for this whole time, and we did have one doctor here, and I'm thankful that he said it. It just kind of helped me realize he can still stand. I don't know why, and even the doctor who was doing some testing, he was like, consider yourself blessed. So it's like...
He can stand up.
So the knees down don't work, but he can still stand. So anytime I have to get him out of bed, the whole time he's been sick, even today, to get him out of bed, to go just like transferring him, like going to our vehicle or anything. I mean, I just like wrap around him because he like his muscles are weak just from not having to use them a lot. He can't move his arms. He can't lift his arms up. He can't open his hands. He can't bend his knee to take a step, but he's always been able to stand up. So for some reason he has, so I've never had to like dead weight physically lift him, but he can stand.
And with the new wheelchair, family in Rexburg gave you a van.
Yeah.
So he can get out of the house.
Yes, that is, we were so excited for that. Once the wheelchair comes and we can get the two together, it'll be amazing. I mean, he feels like, so he served an LDS mission and you're gone for 2 years and you come back to a town that's like, what, when did this happen? And there even a few times when we'd like go to the doctor, he's like, it was the same thing. You know, he just hasn't been out town and about, and you know, I haven't even been to so many of the new stores that have been open, and we're both just like, what has this place turned into?
What are we gonna go first?
Yeah.
So, what have you learned about ALS that our audience may not know?
Medically wise, I don't know. I think everybody knows the whole ice bucket challenge. That's ironically, that was all kind of happening, just right before this happened. But when it comes down to it, I just know that when something like this has happened, how much people have cared. Just strangers, not only my neighbors on my road or my immediate family, but extended family, everybody out there. I mean, there's so many people who are willing to help and the relationship that Wyatt and I have now, is way, way up there compared to what I thought it was when, and I can't, it's so hard. I want to be frustrated, but I can't because there's still so many good things that have come out of it. So I don't know if you've seen I've written it a few times, but ALS to me stands for your attitude, love, and service. Because there's so many things that have just been for the positive and for the good that I don't like to focus on the negative. Of course I know what the doctors are going to tell me what's going to happen, but I'm not going to spend every day worrying about that or what's going to, I want to make today great for him, for my kids, for other family members.
And for people out there that might be going through difficult health challenges, maybe not ALS, but cancer, or
anything.
What would your message be to them?
Don't give up. Don't just keep going. Just keep fighting. I love that. There's been so many people who sent me that message and they would say those things like, you're such an inspiration. And honestly, I don't know how I'm an inspiration. And thank you for saying that. But you're just as great. Everybody's life is just as important. And there's so many things out there that people are willing to do for you. And when you let people help you, it's helping them feel good too. So it's a big circle. Let everybody help each other.
You need to apply that to you, because what you don't know is that the day after the Secret Santa, Mindy called and said, I don't feel worthy of taking this. And I think you even offered to give some of it back or something.
Nate, there's so many other people out there. Just because Wyatt has ALS, it doesn't mean that we're any more important or, there's I've had on Facebook, people that I went to high school with, hey, he's going through cancer. And you look at that and you're just like, it eats at you. You just are hurting. And so to me, that's a lot of money. That's not just, here's $10. And so to take all that, I appreciate it, but then to me, I keep thinking, well, who else could need this? Who else needs this? There's somebody else. So I think that's where my guilt comes in, is it's like, why? And Wyatt and I have said this. With everything that's happened, with the news, people reaching out and it going everywhere, we're like, why us? Why not somebody else? There's somebody else out there who could use this. And People magazine contacted me. He talked to me and he said, so can I hear your story? And I said, why? And he, you could tell he was shocked, taken back, and he's like, well, I want to write an article about it. Is that okay? And I said, why do you want my story? What is it about it? And he said, well, I think there's a couple of things. It'll bring great awareness for ALS. And he said, the time of the year, the holidays. And he's like, but you guys have a real love story. And it was at that moment that I realized, I'm like, okay, I think that's what this is. A lot of this is I love him. I will do anything for him. So.
And I would imagine he would do anything for you as well.
Yep.
Mindy Rees, thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
And we want to let people know that there's a lot of information out there about ALS.
Yes.
That hopefully there is a cure soon. You mentioned the Ice Bucket Challenge. That whole movement was to raise awareness and money to help.
It did. I had no idea. We got there and they said, you register with the ALS Association, we'll get you a wheelchair and the eye gaze tablet. That's not even ours. They sent it. They said that only happened because people donated so much money. Now they had these resources to have, they're just sitting in, they're called loaner lockers. They're sitting in a loaner locker for when somebody gets diagnosed, they can send it to you as soon as you can, so you don't have to sit and wait for insurance. And
so the Ice Bucket Challenge money helped you guys get that.
Yep.
I'm glad I got dunked.
Yeah.
Glad I got covered in ice water.
It was for a reason. Thank you. It was for us.
Well, and so many other people, not just me, obviously.
Yes.
Well, have a good Christmas.
Thank
We're
you.
excited to see the progress and see Wyatt walking and talking again one day.
Yeah.
And we'll follow up next time and have him here when that
Sounds
happens.
good. Yep.
Thank you for watching. Have a good week.
East Idaho Newsmakers is brought to you by the Bank of Commerce, your bank of a lifetime.